I want us to start the 702 open line with Professor Firoz Cachalia, who is the acting Minister of Police. I've asked him to come through just quickly to explain this decision now to declassify this report. Minister, thank you so much for making time for us at such short notice. I always appreciate you willing to engage with us. Good morning.
Good morning to you and your listeners.
Why has IPID now decided to declassify this report?
So, first I'd like to explain to your listeners who may not be familiar with IPID's mandate. IPID is a legally, constitutionally independent body. It makes its own decisions on the matters that it must investigate. Sometime last year, IPID informed me that they had classified this report. I do not recall all the reasons, but it was on the basis that they did not want to compromise an ongoing criminal investigation. My memory is correct. About a few weeks ago, they informed me, as they're required to do, because they also have reporting requirements to the minister, that they had declassified the report. So those decisions to classify and declassify are decisions made independently of the ministry. I hope that clarifies matters.
Okay, does that mean, Prof, if I can follow up there with a question, does that mean every single time that IPID investigates a case, they classify that report until the investigation is done so that they don't compromise the investigation?
No, that's a good question. No, it does not mean that. They provide classification, which of course I'm not entitled to second guess, a few months ago. So I don't recall the full explanation for the decision to classify, but I do recall that there was that one of the reasons, at least, was that it would compromise an ongoing criminal investigation, but they did explain the decision that they made at the time, which is about 6 months ago.
Yeah. I'm interested, Minister, because, and honestly speaking, it does not make sense, at least to me and many other South Africans, that every time IPID does an investigation, it doesn't take a similar approach. I don't remember IPID ever saying, and they've investigated other sensitive cases before. I don't remember them saying, we're going to classify this report because we're worried about the integrity of the witnesses. We don't want to compromise the investigation. And yet with the Phala Phala report, that's exactly the approach that they have taken. Were you satisfied with the reasons that they gave you when they explained why they classified this report to begin with?
So let me just be clear that decision, I was informed of the decision as they were required to do, because they have reporting requirements to the ministry about 6 months ago. I recall the single reason, but they did provide an explanation. I think that is a matter of some interest, and
sorry, Minister, we lost you there. You said that's a matter of interest.
You could explore that matter with IPID and its spokesperson. The important point is also that they have now declassified the report. And there are obviously reasons that informed this decision. So those are matters that can be explored with IPID, because in principle that is the right avenue. This is an independent body, and they should be accountable for the decisions that they made.
Absolutely, and I've tried to get them on the show to explain what the rationale has been, and we're just struggling to get them to come on the show. That's why I appreciated you so much for coming through, and I am aware, Minister, I accept IPID? Okay. Minister, I've just been told by the producers that IPID
Okay.
has now suddenly made themselves available. So I wanted to say that I am aware that also you're limited because you've only just been given these briefings and you were never there from the beginning when the decision was made. So let me thank you for coming through and explaining from what you have received from them. I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
Thanks
very much.
Thank you. Professor Firoz Cachalia, the acting Minister of Police. You see, you can see there that he's not completely convinced. He says, oh, that's a good question. That's a matter of interest. That's something that can be explored with IPID. So let's get IPID on the line and hear how they are able to explain how this report was classified to begin with. And look, I'm not saying them declassifying it is not good news, but that's not where we should stop. If there are decisions that have been taken that we think are bizarre as South Africans, we need to be able to have the opportunity to get some clarity on them. So Lizzy Shuping is the spokesperson for IPID on Phala Phala. She was on 7:02 afternoon yesterday with John Perlman. They mostly focused on the declassification and what it means and what processes can be followed for people who want to get the report on their hands. But Lizzy, thank you so much for coming through. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and good morning to 702 listeners.
So you've already explored with my colleague John Perlman yesterday about the processes post this declassification, but I'm more interested in the reasons for the classification. Can you confirm this morning to our listeners if every single investigation you do as IPID, you classify it to avoid compromising the investigation?
No, we do not classify all the investigations that we do, but we have to look and assess the investigations that we do, and a determination will be made on whether to classify or not. But if I have to focus on Phala Phala, at the time when we concluded our investigation, there was still a DPCI investigation that was ongoing. And at the time, we did not want to prejudice the investigation because there were some common elements between our investigation and the DPCI investigation. And they informed us sometime last year that they had concluded the investigation, and that is the reason why we then felt that we should declassify the report.
Okay, the DPCI is, if I remember correctly, it was a while back when they decided that they're not going to follow through with the charges. Like, in fact, the NPA ultimately decided so. So when exactly did the Hawks tell you that they are done with their investigation? Because that happened a while back.
No, it was sometime late last year, just that I don't have the date with me.
Late last year?
Yes, late last
Hawks?
year. No, I'm sorry. The Hawks is the DPCI.
Yeah.
It was late last year that they told us that they now had concluded their investigation. And that is why we had to sit as IPID and review our decision on the classification of the report. And that is now, because we felt that there's no prejudice anymore that would happen, then we have to declassify
Lizzy,
the report.
I've just checked my notes here because I thought maybe I was going crazy. Because I remember back in 2024, the Hawks confirming that the former security chief of President Cyril Ramaphosa, for instance, is not going to be prosecuted. So my understanding is that between 2024 and 2025, that's when the Hawks had actually ended their investigation. It didn't end late last year, which is why the NPA announced many months ago that there were not going to be any prosecutions in this matter. So if that announcement would have been made so long ago, why would the Hawks then come back to you only late last year to inform you about something they had already informed the public about quite a long time ago?
Clement, the Hawks were busy with the investigation, a criminal aspect of the investigation, and IPID was looking at the conduct of officers who handled the matter.
Yes.
So, yes, and because I'm saying there were common elements, we did not want to prejudice the
But to be clear, the common element was the police, right?
The common element is the police.
Because that's what you investigate.
We are looking at the conduct. They are looking at the criminal aspect of the entire incident that happened at Phala Phala. So late last year, they did confirm to us in writing that they had now concluded the investigation, and that is the reason why then we felt that we should then reconsider declassifying our report.
So the common elements here is that you are investigating the SAPS members who were involved here, their conduct. The Hawks were also investigating. Part of their investigation are probably dabbled in that. Isn't that the commonality here?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
If that is the commonality, then why did the Hawks in June 2024 announce publicly that Wally Rode, for instance, who is the person that I would imagine as IPID you are investigating, and they were also at some point investigating. Why would the Hawks in 2024 announce that this person is not going to face prosecution for the alleged cover-up of the Phala Phala robbery? And then this is back in 2024, and they only communicate to you in 2025 late that, oh, we're actually done with their investigation, because it wouldn't make sense for the Hawks to announce this if they were not done with their investigation. I mean, why would you announce that someone is not going to be prosecuted if you're not done investigating them, or the entire case for that matter?
Clement, the Hawks were investigating the entire criminal part. And because some of the witnesses as well that we had, they needed information from them. Yes, in 2025, when they were still investigating, that is what I'm saying to you, late 2025, that's when we received information that they were now done with the report, because some of the witnesses that they needed in their case, they were also our witnesses. And that is the reason why we did not want to prejudice and share that information in public while their investigation was on.
But you didn't need to share any information in public when you investigate as IPID. Like, you can have your own, the same way that the Hawks will do its own investigation, and sometimes when we call them for a comment, they'll say, we can't talk on that because we don't compromise this investigation. But you don't see a thing being classified. I mean, that's quite an extreme measure. As IPID, you could easily ensure that you have got a watertight team that you tell not to leak any information to the public. In fact, any police officer who investigates a sensitive case knows that they're not supposed to do that. Going as far as classifying a report is quite an extreme measure.
Clement, like we've said, we did not want to prejudice the investigation.
How would it have been prejudiced?
Like I've said to you, Clement, now, there were some common elements, there were common witnesses, and all the information that they needed. Some of it, we had it on ourselves, they did not have it. So you need to allow them the space as well to do their work. And that is the reason why. But now, because they are done with the investigation, we felt that it was not necessary anymore to continue classified the report. And that is why it has now been finally declassified.
So the investigation is done now. Your investigation is done on the SAPS officers, like Wally Rode, yes, who's one of them.
Yes.
Will you be telling the public what the outcome of that investigation has been and whether or not the actions of Wally Rode were legal?
What we've done as IPID, we've sent through the recommendations to SAPS, who is the employer, asking them to institute disciplinary action against their members because we felt that there was a case to answer. However, like any other investigation report, we do not share the report with the public. We just share certain aspects of the report. And anybody who wants access to that report will then have to go through our legal services or information officer to access the report.
Okay, so when did you send the recommendation to the SAPS that they must take disciplinary action against their members?
It was sent last year.
When last year?
The date evades me for now, but it was sent last year.
Okay, so it was sent immediately after the Hawks told you that...
No, after the conclusion of our own investigation.
Okay, and this is after the Hawks had told you that they've concluded their investigation, or before?
No, remember, we concluded our investigation before the Hawks finalized their investigation. And we then made those recommendations to SAPS as the employer to act. Okay,
so why then did you not declassify it as soon as you were done with your investigation? Because you didn't worry about now what the Hawks was doing, right?
Clement, we said we did not want to prejudice because our witnesses, some of the witnesses that they needed in their case, they were also our witnesses.
Hey, so Amara, you done with the investigation?
No, we needed to allow them the space.
Hi, but why are you thinking for the Hawks, Lizzy? You don't work for the Hawks. You think for
We are not
IPID, if the
thinking for
Hawks
the
are,
work.
but if the Hawks have no problem with witnesses or anything like that, you are thinking for them. If you are done with your
No, we are not
investigation,
thinking for them. We're all in law enforcement. Obviously, when investigations happen here and there will be discussions because we've got the same type of witnesses.
So
that
they
is the
supported
reason why
your idea.
Yeah.
The Hawks were okay. They supported it. They asked that actually that works for us. Thank you for classifying that report.
You don't want to, when somebody is busy with an investigation, Clement, you don't want to prejudice the investigation.
Okay.
And that is the reason why. And once they were done, they came back to us and said, we are finally done with our report.
Okay.
And then that was the reason why we...
So if I call the Hawks right now and I ask them, were you guys in support of IPID classifying the report because you were worried that if they did classify it before you are not done with your investigation, that would have compromised your investigation, then I will get a yes from them.
Clement, I'm saying to you, I don't speak for the Hawks, I speak for IPID.
How? You just said that the Hawks called you and said, hey...
Clement, can I finish?
Yes, please clarify.
IPID, and I'm saying to you because at times there will be those engagements between the two parties because we're all investigating one matter but looking at different aspects. And here and there will be common elements. You don't want to prejudice somebody's investigation while they are busy.
Yeah, but Lizzy, was the Hawks worried about that? Clement. Was the Hawks worried about their investigation being prejudiced as a result of you declassifying the report? That's a yes or no.
Obviously, it will impact on their investigation.
Were they worried?
Why? Yes.
Did they express that to you?
It will impact on
their investigation. Did they express that to you as IPID?
When we engage as stakeholders within law enforcement, we do talk, we engage, we even realize that some of the witnesses that they needed were our witnesses. So you allow them that space to do their work.
Okay, Lizzy Shuping, I appreciate your time. Thank you for making time. I'm out of time now. That's the IPID spokesperson. I want to get the producers to call the Hawks here and find out if they ever, in a way, expressed or indicated directly or indirectly if this was a concern. Something is fishy here.
Hanging out with Clement
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.